introduction for myself. My name is Jerry Paffendorf. I moved to Detroit in spring of 2009 from San Francisco and New York, and I'm an internet creative. I kind of compulsively come up with entrepreneurial ideas, and then I'm crazy enough to see them through to their completion.
I'm Lorene Carter. I grew up in Southeast Michigan. I've studied art history at U of M, fine arts at the Art Institute of Chicago, and library science at Wayne State. So I've always been interested in taking a lot of small pieces and seeing how they form a larger network, and that was sort of where Jerry and I connected and
got together.
Yeah.
Cool. How many of you guys have heard about this LOVELAND project before in micro real estate? There's pretty cool awareness. So hopefully this is new content. I think the goal that we're going to tag team here is to bring you very quickly on the creative arc of this adventure of beginning to sell square inches of vacant land in Detroit for $1 an inch, and then treating that premise shockingly seriously. So building out the website, building out the software for it, building out the maps, and building out the physical connections to these things, and where that's been growing for us. So when this project started, I moved to Detroit. I didn't know anybody to begin with. I got a studio at the Russell Industrial Center, which is an old car factory converted to studio and creative space. And I put down a grid of 10,000 square inches on the floor of our studio. We didn't even own land yet. And we decided that this premise of inviting people to move to Detroit for a very modest sum of money would be interesting to see what the psychological effect of that was, to figure out what kind of services we could create around it to support it. So we put up a Kickstarter round, which is a website that lets you post a fundraising goal for a project, and people can get behind it if they like it. And immediately we started to move units. So we had a first investor, as we called them, come in real quick, bought 1,000 inches, and that was kind of a cue that maybe we were onto something, having micropayments connecting people to the city. We started building out a website. So we created a really cool map that when you invest in the project, your inches immediately show up in these microhoods, and you can log into your property, and you can meet your neighbors. So if you go to makeloveland.com, you can find these maps. You can kind of snoop around and see who owns what. And if you click through, you'll find out information about that investor, what they plan to do with their inches, and then we have kind of a simple reward system for interacting with it. We also started to mail out physical deed packages. So if you got 12 inches or more, you get a square-inch golden deed and a magnifying glass and a letter from us and stuff. So even if you would never, physically visit your inch or whatnot, we were creating these kinds of like physical or human connections with people. Once we'd raised enough money, we bought a piece of land. We went out. We created a physical framework that completely corresponds to the online map. So what you're looking at here is called Plymouth. It exists on the east side of Detroit. It's on the cross-section of Verner and Holcomb. And there is exactly 10,000 square inches in the grassy parts there, which over the course of about 7 months, 588 people bought all 10,000 inches. We started thinking about how we could provide city services to make this a more interesting experience. So one of the first things we tried to do was create a way for people to look at their land live over the internet. And so we built this solar-powered camera system. It's basically an iPhone in a birdhouse with a solar panel attached. And the idea was that you would go to the website, you could look at your land, you could mail us something, and 2 or 3 days later, you'd see something show up in Detroit. You'd go, oh my God. But what happened was, the day after we put it up, somebody chopped it down and took the panel and stuff, which was a good lesson not to leave nice stuff on vacant lots in Detroit. But also a good lesson for us to think really more strongly about, what is the core of this project? Like, this is really fun and this is really cool, but how can we grow it out so that we don't have people just creating a tiny little art project? And we had fun stuff like this guy, Ken Hudson in Toronto, bought 100 inches and then mailed us a whole bunch of these squirrels that he makes to put on his land. So after we sold out Plymouth, we knew we needed to start a new microhood, and we wanted to take the game up a level. So we started trying to add story elements to it. This property is 50,000 square inches, and we discovered through my crazy map explorations that the Detroit River is 50,000 inches across, and there's this whole controversy over who's going to build the next bridge in the city, and we thought it'd be fun if we built our own bridge, but it'd be made out of internet, rather than concrete and stuff. So the narrative is that every inch clicks this thing across the river, and then Detroit can connect back up, to the rest of the world through this magical property. And we also started adding some characters. We called this the Storyverse, trying to make it fun. Kind of like in Mario Brothers, you've got Mario and Bowser and the Turtles and all these things. In our case, it was like we had Mayor Pingree, who was a mayor in 1890, come back from the dead as a half cyborg. And he was the first advocate for urban agriculture in Detroit, so he kind of topically fits back in. and he has to do battle with an evil demon zombie robot from Zug Island who's controlled by a billionaire who sits on a bunch of land in Detroit and doesn't do anything. And he tries to stop Inchy, and Inchy and Pingree have to fight him and fight evil ghost inches and stuff. So that was kind of cool. But we at the same time as we were having a lot of fun with it, we were really looking for connections to how to make this project realer and realer, have real impact inside of the city. So one of the first things we did along those lines was we created a grant system, and we started setting it up so that as you bought inches in the project, those inches were going directly to fund other projects in Detroit. So we've done things so far like we funded a few public artworks. I don't know if you've heard of Monumental Kitty, but there's a giant, awesome, big brick cat head by Old Tiger Stadium site. We funded some rehab projects. We bought art supplies and some other things for kids that lived around our first microhood, and then did some animations bringing their pictures to life. And we did give out square-inch checks, which is kind of funny. The bank didn't cash them, but they should have to legally. And then that looking to do realer and realer things led to new opportunities, such as?
Right. So not long after we started all of this granting process, we were approached by a friend who said, we have the opportunity to buy these 2 houses that sit on Roosevelt Park in front of the train station. And we said, well, we're nuts, so of course we want in. And we started the Imagination Station, which is about art, technology, community, and sustainable building practices. So we cleaned up the site. We had several volunteer days out there. And we've put together a design team that is now working on the hopefully living building renovation of what will be the media center, which should be a zero energy being pulled from the grid house once it's finished. We also realized that in order to build these kind of things, we needed money, and we sort of viewed money as a social energy or a social currency. And so from there, we went back to a lot of the fundraising platforms that we built with Loveland, and we created things like Watts. So now we have on the Imagination Station a platform in which you can get a social currency through the Imagination Station, and all of your dollars turn into energy, which then we're building partnerships so that those dollars that you put into the Imagination Station don't only build up the programming and the buildings that we need, but they also go back into your own pocket through like deals that we have with partnerships. That said, we also applied the same sort of idea to Lemonade Detroit, where the way they're doing their fundraising is you can buy a frame of the movie for $1 a frame, and there we have our lovely Claire Nelson. So again, with making the internet realer and realer, we took the Loveland maps and we put them into our neighborhood of Corktown, where the Imagination Station sits. And through there, just like we had in Loveland, we connected a profile that you could interact with. And one of the initiatives of the Imagination Station right now is to go through, put every parcel in Corktown online, interact with every neighbor, and take their stories. And so this screenshot is the first story that we collected, and that's a gentleman who lives on Wabash Street directly behind our houses. His name is Albert Crenshaw. And from there, we decided, well, why not also introduce the payment platform into the parcel data? So now, once you click into your parcel, in the places that you own in Corktown, you can go in and you can start a project and fund a project, and also set a goal and a tipping point for that kind of fundraising.
So this is the part that totally excites and scares the crap out of me, because this is where messing around with inches on the floor of a studio, I think, is getting powerful to the point where I don't think any city has seen the kind of map that we're working to create right here. Basically just like the inch maps, exactly like the inch maps, social maps that you can log into, mouse around, see who owns what. We've gotten all the parcel data for the entire city of Detroit. So if you go to inchernet.com right now, like internet but with like inch, you can see the beta of this. So you basically mouse around all these properties and you find out who the owner is. We've got a login system that we haven't turned on for it yet because we need to get ready to kind of customer service it, I guess you would say. But the idea is that you can go through any parcel, you can post a project if it's happening there. We're creating different layers so you can look for businesses and stuff like that. But you can also comment on anything. And importantly, for the first step that we're adding to it is the ability to click any parcel, and then very seamlessly and simply add a fundraiser to it. So essentially, we've added a payment gateway to every piece of land in Detroit, which kind of blows my mind. I mean, right now we're expecting the first uses of it to be like neighborhood projects. Somebody wants to raise a few $100s to work on their house or work on a garden or something. Friends will be able to chip into it. But also people that are selling land or people that want investment in their projects, I think will be able to turn it on too. So you'll be able to hit Detroit online, look for interesting opportunities that you want to be a part of, and you'll clearly be able to see them. Yeah, you basically start at this level, click down to your zone. There's like 500,000 unique parcels on it. We've been able to map interesting things, like this is only some of the properties that were up at the foreclosure auction over the fall. The city doesn't do these things. No one else has taken the time to visualize and make transparent any of this kind of information. And it's really interesting when you think about initiatives like the city has right now, like the Detroit Works project, where they're really interested in trying to intelligently resize the city, invite people to live in core clusters, just figure out what to do in a city where you've got so much vacancy. We maintain that if you can't see that stuff granularly, if you can't see it specifically, and you have no way to interact with it, then you're just hand-waving, you're not solving any problem. So we're really excited about the potential of what we're building to be the gateway. If you want to find out how to get involved in Detroit, you go and look at it, you find your opportunities, and if you live in a neighborhood in Detroit, this is where you go to meet your neighbor, report problems like the streetlights being out, find out who the deadbeat is that owns the blighted house next door, that guys are doing drugs in, report that, and just have a way to organize.
How big can you make an inch? You can make it as big as you can think it.
If
And it's about the same size as Detroit, I'm guessing.
Yeah, turns out you just got to zoom in real far. So if you want to check out the project, it's makeloveland.com and face the station, and you can hit us that a ways. And the adventure continues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.